Iredale as commandant. Nothing at all.
Oh, he's a good chap, Iredale, when all's said and done.
And his wife's such a nice person. Don't you think, Terence?
Oh, I don't know, Shane. A bit overdressed for my taste.
I know what you mean. I wonder why they can never keep their servants. I hear Mr. Rhodes will be helping out with the corps next half.
Poor little Rhodes. Running about like a puppy trying to earn his biscuit. He tries so hard. Have you ever seen him at school matches?
Well, he ought not to try quite so hard. Do you know, Terence, he'd never seen a game of rugger before he came here? It's all soccer at grammar schools, I believe.
Is it? Do you remember when he first came, Charles?
Oh, yes, quiet as a mouse.
It was fascinating how he lay very low, drinking us in. The games, the vocabulary, the manners, everything. Then one day, it was as if he'd been given the power of speech, and he spoke our language. It was amazing, like plastic surgery. It was Felix Darcy's work, of course. I've never seen anything quite like it before.
Dear Mrs. Rhodes. So sweet and such simple taste, don't you think? I mean, whoever would have dreamt of putting those china ducks on the wall? Big ones at the front and little ones at the back. I wonder where she bought them. I must ask her.
Shall I ask her?
You, Terence, would you?
I think not. I find Mrs. Rhodes hell, to be honest, for once. Still, they're here next Wednesday. I can't leave them out.
Black candles, Terence.
Of course.
Here are the coats, Mr. Fielding.
Oh, thank you, True.
Let me help you with yours, Mrs. Hesh.
Thank you, Miss Truebody. Poor, dear, sad old fur.
Oh, no. It's a lovely coat, madam.
Well, thank you, Terence. Extremely pleasant. You know we're going to miss you when you go.
Good night, Terence, darling. So kind. And in your last half, you must dine with us before you go.
I'd be delighted.
Good night, Mr. Hesh.
Oh, good night to you, Miss Truebody. Oh, it's turning very cold, you know. We'll be having snow soon.
Good night, Miss Truebody.
Good night, Mrs. Hesh.
And thank you for such a delightful meal. You must have gone to a lot of trouble.
Oh, not really, madam. It's nice to know you enjoyed it.
Good night again, Terence, darling.
Good night, Shane.
Oh, it's turned cold. It's nearly the long night, isn't it? It's always supposed to snow at Caen during the long night.
And it often does. Oh, do come on, Shane.
Oh, Charles, you can quick march your boys as much as you like. I propose to go slower. Good night, Terence.
Good night.
There now. It was a success, wasn't it, Mr. Fielding?
Yes, I suppose it was true.
There, that's done. Oh, you look tired, sir.
I am a little, True. Indeed, I am.
Is there anything else, sir?
No, nothing else. Sleep well, True.
And you too, sir. Good night.
Good night.
I wrote to Stella Road, George. Today I got another letter, not really a reply, and now I am worried.
Which is why you've dropped in again.
Yes, frankly. Here, read it for yourself.
Right. 15th of February. Dear Miss Fellowship, I am not mad, you must believe that, but I know my husband is trying to kill me. I will come and see you as soon as I can. You do understand that I am normal. I'm so afraid of the long nights. There's something not quite right about him. At night sometimes, when he thinks I'm asleep, he just lies watching the darkness. I know he is trying to kill me, but what can I do? It's not nice, is it?
You know, I suppose I should go to the police, but I thought first, would you perhaps see Terence Fielding?
Yes. I'll ring him now. I could go down to Caen tomorrow.
Oh, thank you, George.
I looked up Fielding's number after you were here the other day.
Oh. I wonder what the long nights are. Have you any idea?
I don't know. It's Ash Wednesday shortly. Something to do with Lent, perhaps.
It sounds possible.
Ah, Caen School. I'd like to speak to Mr. Terence Fielding, please. George Smiley. No, from London. Mr. Fielding is being got.
Good.
I wonder just how the husband is trying to kill the wife, or how the wife thinks he is, rather.
I wonder that.
These long nights sound disturbing enough, even if you aren't expecting to be murdered.
Yes.
Maybe Fielding can tell us what they are. Ah, Fielding. Good evening. My name is George Smiley. I knew your brother well. We have, in fact, met. Yes, that was it. Look, I wonder if I might come to see you on a personal matter. A bad time? Or what has happened? No, for a friend of mine. She's received a disturbing letter from the wife of a Khan master. Yes, Stella Road. Oh. Yes. Thank you, Fielding. Goodbye. Stella Road is dead, I'm afraid, Brim.
Dead? She was...
Murdered. Late on Wednesday night. That's last night. She and her husband had been dining with Fielding earlier in the evening.
And the husband?
I don't know. Fielding said something. I couldn't quite catch it.
George, they'll have to know about the letter.
The police, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, I think they will.
You couldn't go down there, could you?
To Khan? Well, I suppose I could. But would it really help?
I've a feeling it would.
All right, then. If you say so, Brim.
Oh, good.
I'd better find out who's in charge of the case there. Special branch might help. I'll give them a ring, and no doubt be on my way in the morning.
Oh, sorry, sir. I say, I nearly knocked you down.
I say, you nearly did. What's the rush about?
Sext, sir.
Sext.
Midday prayers, sir. We say them in the Abbey during Lent.
Ah, I see. Is that the east gate across there?
Yes, sir. I'll show you, sir. I had no need really to rush, but we always do. Are you visiting the school, sir?
Yes, I suppose I am. I hope to see Mr. Fielding if I have the time.
Oh, he's my housemaster, sir. My name's Perkins. I'm Mr. Fielding's head boy, sir.
Oh, that's what's called a coincidence, isn't it?
Yes, it is, sir.
You've had a lot of snow here. When did it start?
Yesterday, sir. It's a few days early. We usually get it on the long night. This is the gate, sir.
Do you? On the long nights, eh? Oh, thank you, Perkins. That's the police station just across the road, isn't it?
The police station? Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you again, Perkins. And don't be late for Sext.
Oh, come in, Mr. Smiley. I was expecting you.
Yes, I'd hoped.
I'm Inspector Rigby. Ben Sparrow rang this morning, sir.
Ah, that was good of him.
Oh, come in, sir.
Thank you.
The two of you work together on the war, I believe.
Yes?
Well, sir, I'll be happy to give you all the help I can. Oh, I could do with some myself, the way things are. Anyway, I'm very pleased you've come.
Thank you.
I believe you've got a couple of letters for me.
Yes. I don't know if Ben explained, but here they are.
Ah, thank you, sir. He told me all about Miss Brimley. Oh. Not nice letters, are they? I suppose Miss Brimley is sure of the writing.
You can trust her.
Aye, so Ben said.
She's had other letters about a cake mix and so on from Mrs. Rode, and I suppose you can check the handwriting here.
Oh, we can, but it's her writing without a doubt. Well, sir, how long are you staying?
Well, I don't really know, Inspector. I should probably stay for a day or two just to have a word with Fielding. And go to the funeral, I suppose. I've booked in at the Sawley Arms.
Why no tell that? At least some think so. It's a funny place, Khan. There's a big gap between the town and gown. It's fear that does it. Fear and ignorance. Oh, I can call on Mr. Fielding and Mr. Darcy, and they say, "Good day, Sergeant," and give me a cup of tea in the kitchen. I don't get cross, but I can't get among them. They've got their own community, see, and no one outside it can get in on it.
Yes, it would be like that.
There's a lot I'd like to ask them. A lot of things. Who liked the Rhodes and who didn't? Whether Mr. Rhodes, the good teacher, whether his wife fitted in with the others. Lots of things. I've got all the facts I want, but I've got no clothes to hang on them.
Well, if you want me to help, I'll be delighted. But why not give me the facts first?
All right, then. Well, today is Friday the 18th. Stella Road was murdered between 11:10 and 11:45 on the night of Wednesday the 16th. She'd been struck on the head. Must have been 15 to 20 times. It was a terrible murder. Terrible. At a guess, I'd say she came from the drawing room to the front door to answer the bell or something, and when she opened the door, was struck down and dragged round to the conservatory. The conservatory door was unlocked.
I see. It's odd that he should have known that, isn't it?
It is that, sir. He finished her off there, out of sight like. He was wearing Wellington boots, size 10, be around 6 feet tall from the spacing of the footprints.
And covered in blood.
Aye.
Where was her husband?
I'll come to that later. Now, I said there were footprints, and so there were. The murderer came through the back garden. Where he came from and went to, heaven alone knows. There are no Wellington tracks leading away, none at all. A lot of other footprints. We can be grateful for the snow, but it doesn't help as it might. He left one thing behind him in the conservatory, an old cloth belt, navy blue, from a cheap overcoat by the look of it.
Was she robbed or anything?
No sign of interference. She was wearing a string of green beads round her neck, and they've gone, and it looks as though he tried to get the rings off her finger, but they were too tight. I need hardly tell you that we've had reports from every corner of the country about tall men in blue overcoats and gumboots, but none of them had wings, as far as I know, or 7-league Wellingtons for jumping from the conservatory to the road.
On the telephone, Fielding told me that the Rhodes had been dining with him that evening.
Just so. They left Fielding's house in the center of the town at about 10 to 11, walking. Their house is about half a mile away on the edge of the playing fields.
North Fields, it's called.
That's the place. Well, they got there at about 11:05. When he got home, Rhodes remembered that he left a case containing examination papers behind him at Fielding's. So he went back, and Mrs. Rhodes was going to wait up for him. Well, he arrived back at Fielding's about 11:30, collected the papers in their case, and set off home again. At that time of night here, there isn't anybody much about. Rhodes doesn't remember whether he saw anyone. He has an idea a bicycle overtook him, but he's not sure. It was a fine night, cold, a fresh fall of snow on the ground. The light was on in the drawing room. Everything looked quiet enough, very normal.
There was a moon, wasn't there?
Nearly full. You could see a mighty long way. Well, anyway, he found he didn't have his key with him, so he rang the bell. But he got no reply. So he called to his wife through the letterbox, and still got no reply. Then he noticed the churned up snow and footprints going round the side of the house.
Did he realize there was blood about?
No. He thought it was an overflow from the gutter. It just showed up dark. Well, he followed the marks round the house until he came to the conservatory. No moonlight there, and the light didn't work.
Didn't work?
Oh, simple enough. The bulb had gone, and the conservatory wasn't used much in the winter.
Well, did he light a match?
No, he didn't have any. Non-smoker, see. His wife didn't approve of smoking. So he went in the dark, calling her name. Then he fell over something. At first, he thought it was a refugee parcel. Then he realized it was his wife. There he was then, in the dark, trying to find out what was wrong, and then discovering that his hands were covered in blood. He doesn't remember much after that.
Poor devil. And then?
He was found by a master who lives 100 yards or so away, Mr. Darcy. Almost out of his mind, his hands and face covered in blood. I arrived there about 1. We got him into Dorchester Central Hospital. He's still there, but I gather the shock's wearing off.
What is the refugee parcel Rhodes mentioned?
Mrs. Rhodes was the organizer for Caen of parcel collections for a refugee organization, the Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief, clothes and such like. Very energetic at it, she was.
I see. What fingerprints did you pick up at the house?
Oh, Mr. Rhodes were everywhere. The others were made by gloved hands, made before Rhodes.
These examination papers he went back to Fielding's for, were they as important as all that?
Yes, up to a point, anyway. The marks had to be handed in by midday Friday. Today, that is.
Why take them to Fielding's in the first place?
Earlier on, Rhodes had been on chapel duty, so he didn't have time to return home before dinner. He changed at the school, and that's where he left his latchkey, in his other suit.
I see. Then how do you explain Stella Rhodes' letters?
Oh, it is known in the letters we've got to explain.
Oh, what else?
Well, as you know, Mrs. Rhodes was chapel, the only member of the school that was. The minister is a man called Cardew. He knew her pretty well, even before she came to Caen.
Well, isn't Rhodes chapel?
Was. He turned Church of England when he came here. Tried to get his wife to turn also, but she wouldn't. Well, now, Cardew came to see me a couple of weeks back. He was worried and very perplexed at what Mrs. Rhodes had said to him the day before.
He came to see you, officially?
He said he wanted to talk to me as a friend and not as a policeman, which meant he wanted to talk to me as a policeman.
Naturally. And what had Mrs. Rhodes said?
She told Cardew that her husband was going to kill her. In the long nights. She repeated this a number of times. Cardew let her go on, then asked her what put such a dreadful thought in her head. I think he was probably a bit too firm with her. Anyway, all she did was to start crying. Not hysterically, just quietly to herself. So Cardew offered to help her in any way he could. Asked her again what had given her the idea.
Did she say?
No, she wouldn't speak. Just shook her head. Then got up and went to the door. shaking her head as if in despair, Cardew said. She turned to him at the door, and he thought she was going to say something. But she didn't. She just left.
How very curious. She seemed very certain that Rode was going to do it.
It wasn't Rode. It couldn't have been. We found the murder weapon in a ditch 4 miles north of Caen, the morning after the murder. He couldn't have got it there, could he?
What was it?
18 inches of coaxial cable, 2 inches in diameter. One of my chaps found it. We're keeping it very close, sir.
All right, I'll remember. It is the weapon, I suppose.
Everything fits.
It's odd, isn't it, that the murderer should have carried the weapon so far and then just thrown it in a ditch.
It is odd. Very odd. And I'll tell you 2 things that are even odder. There's a canal running beside the road for half its 4 miles. He could have pitched it anywhere along there. We'd never have been any the wiser. The other thing, Mr. Rode used a length of the same stuff in a demonstration lecture on elementary electronics. Mislaid it about 3 weeks ago.
I see. I suppose
Yes, sir?
Rode could have had an accomplice.
He could.
Oh, the papers mentioned a woman you wanted to interview, a Mad Janie.
Oh, it's a nice thought. Mad Janie as an accomplice.
No, I didn't mean that. I just wondered why you wanted to interview her.
Well, Stella Rode knew her, see? She was a kindly woman, was Mrs. Rode, easy to talk to. I knew her through being Chapel, my wife also. We liked her. Most did. Although some of the women at Chapel took against her, but, well, you know what women are. Anyway, Mrs. Rode sort of befriended this Janie creature. Used to give her food and clothes. She is what you would call not all there.
Happily alienated.
Talks to herself and all that. Lives in a disused Norman church over at a place called Pyle, a couple of miles south of Caen. The oldest village in Dorset, so they claim. It's a rum place. Half a dozen families, all so inbred, you can no more sort them out than a barn full of cats. Well, Mrs. Rode used to visit her in her lair there. That upset some people.
Yes, yes. And I suppose Mad Janie has vanished.
Hasn't been seen in her usual haunts since early Wednesday night on the lane towards North Fields. But that don't mean a thing. These people like Janie are all over the neighborhood for years, and one day they're gone like snow in the fire. But we found a spare set of footprints running along the far end of the road's garden. Woman's prints, by the look of them. Could be Janie's. I hope to heaven they are. We could do with an eyewitness, even a mad one. Well, there it all is, sir.
Yes, yes. It's complicated.
Aye.
I'll nose around a bit, Inspector. When I get back to the hotel, I'll give Fielding a ring. He'll probably extend an invitation to dinner. I should like to talk to Fielding.
Sherry wine or Madeira, Smiley?
Thank you. A glass of sherry.
Tarts drink Madeira, but boys like it. Perhaps that's why they're frightful flirts. We're all rather subdued at the moment by this dreadful business.
Oh, how have the boys taken it?
Oh, they adore it. My own house has been particularly fortunate because the Rhodes were dining here that night. Some oaf from the police even wanted to question one of my boys.
Indeed? What on earth about?
Oh, God knows. You knew my brother well, didn't you? He often talked about you.
Yes, I knew Adrian very well. We were close friends.
We didn't see much of one another in later years, Adrian and I. Being a fraud, I can't afford to be seen beside the genuine article.
A message from Mr. Darcy, sir. Oh, hello, sir.
Have you met Mr. Smiley, Tim?
Yes, sir. I ran into him in the Abbey Close this afternoon.
Ran into me literally, but apologized in the most gentlemanly manner and showed me the East Gate.
Ah, I see. And I suppose Mr. Darcy is going to be a few minutes late.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
Good night, sir. Good night, sir.
Good night, Perkins.
Good night, Tim. Musical genius is Perkins, but a problem in the schoolroom. Darcy won't be more than 5 minutes, I know him. He's a frightful toad. Looks like a Sickert model 50 years after. All trousers and collar.
What's his subject?
Subjects? I'm afraid we don't have subjects here. Darcy is senior tutor by election and bachelor by profession, if you follow me. His subject is other people's shortcomings. Stella Rhodes, for instance.
Ah. She was somewhat different from most of the wives here, I imagine.
She was everything we're forced to ignore. She was red brick, council estates, new towns, the very antithesis of Caen.
Yes, yes. Did you like her, Fielding?
I don't know, Smiley. I didn't dislike her. I found her rather touching. But of course she made enemies. She was too honest. And Khan has no defense against her sort of honesty. That'll be Darcy. We'll let him have just one glass of sherry. Only one. After all, he has kept us waiting.
Terence, if I may talk shop for one moment. Perkins' work has been abysmal these last few days. I declare I have never seen work like it. Is he unwell? Has this terrible business upset him? What is it? He never was bright, but really...
I don't think he's unwell, Felix. I'll have a word with him, if you like. Tim is a sensitive boy. Perhaps he's upset.
Well, do have a little chat to him, Terence, please. I'm so sorry, Smiley, to go off suddenly at such a tangent. It was only that I wondered if this unseemly business could be responsible for the boy's behavior.
Oh, yes. You're not suggesting that my head boy had a hand in the murder of Stella Road, are you, Felix?
Really, Terence, it was the last thing I had in mind. Frankly, and in confidence, I have reason to believe it was her past that brought about her death.
Why do you say that?
It appears she was expecting to be attacked.
Well, go on, Felix.
It was her dog. You remember that mongrel they arrived with?
Yes.
A couple of weeks back, Harriman, the vet, a superior type of person, came to see one of my sister's dogs. He told us that Mrs. Rhodes had had the dog destroyed the previous day. She said it had bitten the postman. Oh, some long and confused story. The post office would sue. The police had been round, and I didn't know what else.
Where is all this getting us, my dear Felix?
I'm coming to the point. She said to Harriman that the dog couldn't really protect. It could only warn. It wouldn't do any good.
Wasn't she upset about losing the dog?
Oh, indeed, yes. Tears and all. Harriman was rather perplexed, I gather. Mrs. Rhodes' behavior didn't seem to him at all normal. Another curious fact was the condition of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
It had been maltreated, seriously so. Its back was marked as if from beating.
Did Harriman follow up this remark she made about not doing any good?
He asked her what she meant, but she wouldn't explain. However, I think the explanation is obvious enough.
Oh, what?
My sister and I talked it over after the death. We decided that Stella Road had formed some unsavory association before coming to Caen, which had recently been revived, possibly against her will. Some violent ruffian who would resent the improvement in her station.
No doubt you've seen him lurking in the shrubbery, Felix.
Well,
How badly was the postman bitten by the dog?
but that is the extraordinary thing, the very crux of the story, my dear fellow. The postman hadn't been bitten at all. My sister inquired. The whole story was an absolute string of lies from beginning to end.
Glad you came, Felix. Oh, Smiley, just before you go.
Yes?
That business you rang me about, what was it exactly?
Oh, a letter from Mrs. Rhodes just before she was murdered. The police are handling it, but they don't regard it as significant. She seems to have had a sort of persecution complex.
So it seems, eh, Felix? Well, good night.
There's been a fresh fall of snow. The long night, Terence, the long night. We can walk up to the crossroad together, Smiley, unless you have a car.
No, I haven't. I mean, not here. Good night, Fielding. Thank you for the evening. You must dine with me if you ever come to London. Do you?
I'll let you know. Good night.
Good night, Terence.
Tell me, Darcy, what are the long nights?
We have a proverb that it always snows at Caen in the long night. That is the traditional term here for the nights of Lent.
It's a beautiful night. Is this Northfield?
Northfields Lane. There are several rugger pitches in these fields. That's Northfield. The Rhodes' house is over to your right. Looks horribly empty even from here. My own house is rather larger and lies farther up the lane.
Was it along here that you found Stanley Road that night?
About a quarter of a mile nearer to my house. He was in a terrible condition, poor fellow. Terrible.
From what you were saying at dinner, it seems the Rhodes were a very ill-assorted couple.
Precisely. If her death had happened in any other way, I would describe it as providential, a blessed release for Rhodes. She was a thoroughly mischievous woman, Smiley, who made it her business to hold her husband up to ridicule. I believe it was intentional, others do not. I do, and I have my reasons. She took a pleasure in deriding her husband.
And Khan, too, no doubt.
Just so.
But was she such a problem? Surely her husband could have spoken to her.
I never encouraged him to do so, I assure you. This is our parting of the ways. You must come to Sherry before you go. Do you stay long?
I doubt it. But I'm sure you have enough worries at the moment.
So what do you mean?
Well, the press, the police, and all the attendant fuss.
Yes, just so, quite so. Nevertheless, our community life must continue. I will send a note to the trolley tomorrow. Good night.
Good night. Shall I? Always visit the ground, the scene of the crime. One never knows. Here goes. What's that? The conservatory door swinging. Good God, there's somebody. Or is it a shadow? No. Hello? Who are you?
I thought you was the devil, mister. But you got no wings. But you can't do nothing, mister, 'cause I got this holly for to hold you.
Yes, Jane. That's a very pretty coat you're wearing, Jane.
A pretty blue coat, mister, for to keep me warm. From my darling.
Who is your darling, Jane?
She not be here no more. But she didn't go with the devil, mister. Lay still she did, with not a word.
You saw the devil, Jane?
There's not many seen the devil fly, mister. But Janey seed him. Janey seed him. Silver wings like fishes he done had. Janey saw.
Where did you find that coat, Jane?
Him a bad one. Oh, him a bad one, mister. But I seed him flying, riding on the wind. And the moon behind him lighting up the way. Them closer sisters, moon and devil.
Flying, was he, Jane?
Like this, mister. Like this, riding on the wind. Silver wind. Silver.
Oh, damn. Now she won't come back. But she saw something. She saw the devil fly, riding on the wind.
We found her in the old church at Pyle. I'll tell you about that in a minute, Mr. Smiley. She's made a sort of statement. This last part of it reads like a confession, if it reads like anything. Can you understand it?
So I tells my darling, I tells her, you are a naughty creature to go with the devil. But her did not hearken, see? And I took angry with her, but she paid no call. I can't abide them as go with devils in the night, and I told her. She ought to have had holly, mister, there's the truth. But Janey drove the devil off. And there's one will thank me. That's my darling. And I took her jewels for the saints to pretty out the church. And a coat for to keep me warm. The coat? I suppose it is the one.
Yes, we've traced the woman who gave it to Stella Road for the refugees. Janey must have pinched it from the conservatory.
Did you find any, what she calls, jewels?
We found the missing green beads. They were on the altar, on a cross of twigs. The whole place was scarifying. And of course she would go on about the devil. On and on.
The devil flying.
That's it. Flying on the wind. His silver wings stretched out behind him. Like a folk song it is.
Do you think she did it?
No. Do you, sir?
No, of course not. It was quite impossible. But I think she saw whoever did it. Immediately afterwards. That's driving the devil off. But why flying on the wind? And why should he have silver wings? What are you going to do with her, Inspector?
Hold her for the moment. I think she's better out of the way, just in case.
Yes, yes. The devil must have seen her also.
Are you going to the funeral?
Yes, I think so. And after it, I might try to get a word with Rhodes on behalf of Miss Fellowship and her paper, if you understand.
Oh, I see what you mean, sir. Yes, that would be a very useful idea.
So, my dear Brim, although they didn't use the Abbey, poor Stella Road was given a high Anglican service with a congregation of town and gown. I must say, I prefer the town to the gown from what I've seen of things. But I thought to write you this note just to say that Stella's father was there, a fine, upstanding old man. And I had my first glimpse of Stanley Road, a shallow, ordinary face, a short, ordinary body, black, ordinary hair. The odd thing about him was his impassive, almost too easy manner. Another piece of odd behavior. Fielding at the grave, moving away with an expression of strong distaste as Road came near him, and Road not noticing. I think, for once, T. Fielding was behaving in a genuine manner, but I can't think why he should give himself away so. Afterwards, I spoke to Road on your behalf, quite without emotion, the man was. Anyway, I'm seeing him tomorrow. He's back at Northfield, to get some details for a small obituary on his wife for your paper. I hope you approve, my dear Brim. It's very good of you to spare the time to see me, Mr. Road, in the circumstances.
Not at all.
You were married at Branksome, I believe, Mr. Road.
The Branksome Hill Tabernacle. A fine church.
When was that?
12 years ago, last September.
Did Mrs. Road engage in charitable work in Branksome? I know she was very active here.
No, not at Branksome. But a lot here. She had to look after her father at Branksome, you see.
Did she take a large part in the social activities at Carn?
She did a bit, yes. But being chapel, she kept mainly with the chapel people from the town. You should ask Mr. Cardew about that. He's the minister.
But may I say, Mr. Road, that she took an active part in school affairs as well?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Now, is there any little fact that you would especially like us to include? Anything she herself would like to be remembered by?
No, not really. I can't think of anything. No, you could say her father was a magistrate up north. She was proud of that.
You've been very patient with me, Mr. Road. We're most grateful on The Voice.
I say, you haven't got a car, have you?
No. I mean, I'm afraid I left it in London.
Oh. Never mind. I was only going to suggest we went for a drive, had a chat at the same time. I get a bit fed up kicking around here on my own.
I understand.
Do you? I don't think many do. Understand the loneliness, I mean. They farmed out all my correcting. What am I supposed to do here all on my own? No teaching, nothing. You'd think they want to get rid of me.
Oh, I'm sure that isn't so, Mr. Road.
I know they've done it for the best. But it worries me nothing to do. And my correction, well, not being handled as I would. Simon Snow gave one boy of mine in elementary science 61%. The boy's an absolute fool. Perkins is his name, nice enough boy, head of Fielding's house. He'd have been lucky to get 30%. Snow gave him 61. It's impossible, quite impossible.
Yes, it does seem unlikely.
I suppose really I should have moved out of here. The place is getting on my nerves a bit.
This house, you mean?
Yes. Miss Darcy asked me over to their place to stay, you know, but I didn't feel like it somehow. Not yet.
No, of course.
Very good people, the Darcys. Very good indeed. They have a sherry party on tonight. I'd quite like to have gone in a way.
Who haven't you met, Smiley?
Well, the young people in the... Oh, no, they've moved. Oh, there they are, Darcy. Are they the Snows?
Ah, yes, just so. Simon and Anne Snow. Let me introduce you.
Thank you.
I say, Dorothy, is that Smiley your brother's introducing to the Snows?
Yes, that's him. Strange little blighter.
He married Lord Thorley's cousin. Did you know that?
Oh?
Yes, Lady Anne Thurcombe. She left him soon afterwards, of course.
What do you mean, of course?
You don't know Anne Thurcombe. And now I've seen George Smiley, I wonder if it ever happened.
Poor Simon's been having an awful time, Mr. Smiley. Felix Darcy unloaded all Rhodes' exam corrections onto him.
You mean you have 2 lots of corrections?
Afraid so. It's been a bad week. Rather humiliating in a way. Several of the boys who were up to me for science last half are now in Rhodes form. 1 or 2 I'd regarded as practically unteachable.
Rhodes seems to have brought them on marvellously.
Yes. He was talking to me about one boy, Perkins.
He should be pleased with Perkins. The boy only got 15% last half. This time it's 61. Quite remarkable. Whatever else they say about Rhodes, he's a good teacher.
Teacher, darling, don't let them hear you use that expression.
Oh, no.
You know, Mr. Smiley, Simon's leaving at the end of this half.
Oh. Yes, thank heavens. Back to Oxford, a D.Phil, and then a university job.
You don't like Carl?
Oh, can you blame me? I like it less than poor Stella Road did, and that's saying something.
Shane Heck's advancing.
You must be dreadfully important, Mr. Smiley, for Darcy to serve decent sherry. What are you? President of the Royal Academy?
Oh, I'm afraid not. Darcy and I were both dining at Terence Fielding's on Saturday night, and Darcy asked me for a sherry.
I don't think Terence can be coming. He seemed frightfully upset at the funeral yesterday.
Well, it was rather upsetting, don't you think?
Oh, dreadful. Stella Road was such a nice person, I thought, and so unusual. She did such clever things with the same dress. But she had such curious friends.
Mrs. Snow, I've been meaning to talk to you. I want you to take over Stella Road's job on the refugees. The master's very keen on refugees.
No good, Miss Darcy. We're leaving at the end of this half. I thought everyone knew that.
Felix never tells me a thing, old dress.
And don't you ask me, Dorothy, darling. You know I'm up to my eyes in all sorts of charity.
Refugees?
Oh, it all started with the Hungarians, collecting for them. Stella Road was one of the few wives who did anything. She worked very well, right until her death. I went over to North Fields on Friday with that parson man from the Tin Tabernacle and Cardew. Well, to see if there was any refugee stuff to tidy up, and there wasn't a thing out of place. Everything was all packed up and addressed. We just had to send it off.
Oh, that was very efficient.
Well, it was. Now, who the hell can I find to replace her?
Darling Dorothy, never happy unless she's organizing somebody. Mostly poor Felix.
I suppose I could help. After all, Stella Road was very kind to us, you know, Mr. Smiley.
Yes.
The only Smiley I ever heard of married Lady Anne Thurcombe, a very curious match. I understand he was quite unsuitable. I never did hear what became of Anne. She went to Africa. Or was it India? No, it was America. So tragic. I must go. Charles is looking awfully lonely.
If anybody deserved to be murdered, that's...
Instead, it was Stella. How unjust things are.
You said she was kind to you.
Oh, very.
Yes.
Just one thing. When we moved into a little house in Bread Street, the rain was simply teeming down. We used a firm called Mulligan's. They were absolutely foul. Wanted paying straight away. And I didn't have the checkbook, and Simon was examining for the scholarship. So they even threatened to take the stuff away again.
Yes, fantastic.
Then Stella turned up. I can't think how she even knew we were moving. When she saw what was going on, she just went to the phone and rang Mr. Mulligan himself. I don't know what she said to him, but she made the foreman talk to him afterwards, and there was no more trouble after that. She was terribly happy to help.
Extraordinary story, isn't it? But completely true.
Yes. A sort of magic spell.
I hope you didn't mind my turning up like this out of the blue, George, but the chance came, and I thought I'd like to see Khan.
I can't think how the Christian voice will manage without you for a day, Brim.
Don't be sarcastic. And anyway, I found a perfectly good young lady to hold the fort, if you can describe the voice as a fort.
Well, it's a description that would fit the Sawley Arms. Take where we are now. They call this the residence lounge.
Yes, it's a rather extraordinary echo of the past, isn't it?
Inefficient, antiquated, and smug. There's a framed tapestry in my room of a Buckinghamshire garden. Even I had forgotten such things once existed. And still do, it seems.
The one in my room is of the wild garden at Sandringham.
Good Lord.
I didn't believe it at first, but it's true.
I'm glad you came today.
Thank you, George. It wasn't Road, was it?
No, it was impossible. Rigby is keeping one piece of information very close. I can't tell you what, but it lets Road out. Not that he was ever in, not really.
Have you any idea why Stella Road accused him as she did?
Well, I wrote to you about the minister of the chapel, Cardew, didn't I?
Yes, you wrote out everything very clearly. And as you said, cause and effect just don't go together. No reasonable sequence of events.
No. Stella's obsession with her death in the long night seems to have been, well, unreasonable. There's one thing, though, Brim. Stella wasn't all of a whole, not by any means.
You mean not a sound, sane, nice Glaston? A pillar of the voice?
There are a number of opposing views about her, in Caen, I mean. Darcy dislikes her, and seems to have very good reasons for doing so, which he keeps to himself.
And there was the dog that didn't bite the... Who was it?
Postman. Yes. Well, perhaps she was afraid of someone.
But not her husband.
Not Rhodes, no. Then at the party this evening, a very nice young couple, the Snows, told me how helpful she was when they moved in the town. Came and saved them when the removal men were being difficult. Rang up the owner of the firm, a Mr. Mulligan. Mulligan spoke to the foreman, and all was sweetness and light.
What did she say to Mulligan?
Well, that the Snows don't know. But Stella Road was of no importance in Caen. If she'd been the master's wife, then it would be understandable that Mulligan would kowtow to her.
So she must have had something on the man.
Yes. It doesn't signify. It only places Stella Road in another light. Now, what was it Felix Darcy said to me? She was a thoroughly mischievous woman. And then he went on to say how she took pleasure in deriding Rhodes, holding him up to ridicule.
Rhodes isn't weeping any tears, is he?
No, he's indifferent. And it's an indifference which can only come from a clear conscience.
About Rhodes' briefcase, George, did he really have to go back to Fielding's for it at that time of night? Was he going to sit up marking the papers until the early hours?
I don't know. Presumably he was, but I don't know. I know one thing, Brim. Not that it has anything to do with the murder.
What's that?
Fielding's head boy, Timothy Perkins, has been cheating in elementary science. Oh, it's obvious. His exam marks were unbelievably high. And the science papers were the ones in Rhodes' case.
You mean the boy may have had a chance to look at them whilst the Rhodes were at Fielding's?
More than likely.
You know, George, if Rhodes hadn't gone back for the briefcase, Stella Road would still be alive.
And whoever murdered her must have known she was alone. Yes.
The Janey woman?
Oh, I'm sure not. But of course, Janey saw somebody or something about the time of the murder. And she stole the beads from the body, like she stole a coat from a refugee parcel. Only that doesn't make sense anymore.
Why not?
Well, at the sherry party this evening, Dorothy Darcy told me that when she went to the Rhodes house on Friday with Cardew to see if there was any refugee stuff to tidy up, everything was packed up, labelled, ready to be sent off.
So Mad Janey couldn't have stolen it, or Janey's coat couldn't have been the one in the parcel.
But it was. Rigby traced it to the woman who gave it to Stella for the refugees. And the police found the matching belt in the conservatory by the body. Now, what did Janey say? I took her jewels for the saints, I did, and a coat for to keep me warm.
But it all contradicts, doesn't it?
Well, unless somebody packed the clothes up after Stella died, and before Miss Darcy and Cardew went to the house on Friday. Now, why the devil anyone should do that, I don't know. Good Lord.
What?
Of course. Whoever killed her must have been covered in blood. He would have needed protective clothing, and to get rid of it...
Good heavens. Yes.
You must do something for me tomorrow, Brim, in London. Would you?
Of course. I was planning to return tomorrow. Where do you want me to go?
The Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief.
I'm sorry to be a nuisance, but a friend of mine asked me to make some inquiries about a parcel. My name's Brimley, Miss Brimley. The parcel was from Caen School. It was sent last Friday.
Last Friday? Then it would have arrived yesterday, and with luck, I ought to have entered it.
It wouldn't have been sent away already, Miss...
Just call me Jill. No, we're miles behind. Caen School. That's posh. Let's see. Oh, and a frightful muddle. But then if we weren't, we wouldn't be the Public Schools Committee for Refugee Relief, would we? Oh, here it is. Caen parcel post, £27.
Oh, good.
Is your friend at Caen?
Yes.
And I bet she's given something to the collection she didn't mean to give.
Oh, how clever of you. Yes, at least she thinks she has. An old dress with a quite expensive brooch on it. It's the brooch, of course.
The Caen parcel should be over here. Sorry, it's a terrible mess, isn't it? Like a mad post office. Parcels from every corner of the country.
Every corner that has a public school, that is.
Can we have a quick look inside? I mean, you don't have to get permission or anything.
Oh, don't worry about that. Now, it ought to be here in this pile. Cannes label has C4 on it. My cousin went to Cannes. Oh, he's an utter wet. Do you know what he told me? During Ascot week, they all... Oh, just a minute. Hello. Here we are.
Oh, that is clever of you. Let me take it.
Oh, thanks. There we are. I say, Cannes was where they had that dreadful murder, wasn't it? They're holding that mad woman, aren't they? Now, let's open it. Funny.
What is, my dear?
Well, normally the Cannes parcels are beautifully packed, but this is quite different. I'll take the things out one by one. Awful muddle. What colour dress?
Grey. Grey with a few pink flowers.
Socks. An old duffel. 2 black pullovers. Well, honestly, they must be having a brainstorm. Look at these. A pair of filthy old gloves. Leather, I suppose. Awfully stained, aren't they? And look at these. Rubber overshoes. They're pretty grubby, too. Now, oh, what's this? A plastic cake. Ice cream cake. Ugh. Oh, it's damp and slimy.
Oh.
Are you all right, Miss Brimley?
Yes. Don't worry about me.
You look so pale. But it's no grey dress.
No, my dear. There wouldn't be. These are enough.
I don't understand. This is all mad.
Something very dreadful has happened. I must phone. The police will want to know. Leave the parcel exactly as it is, please.
Is it blood on those things?
Yes. I'm afraid it is.
Tim.
What?
Oh, you did give me a start. And you haven't even put the light on.
I was just going out.
Standing there like a figure in Madame Tussauds.
I'm just on my way to Mrs. Harlow, my music lesson.
I know that, Tim Perkins. I know which evening it is.
Yes, Miss Truebody. Well,
Tim, what is the matter?
I don't think there's anything the matter, Miss Truebody.
Of course there is. Ever since poor Mrs. Rhodes died, you've been going about looking as if you'd seen a ghost. It's not like you. Did it upset you so much?
Mrs. Rhodes? No, it hasn't, really. I was awfully sorry, but, well, I'd only been to tea with her once.
Yes, Tim. I know what you mean. So it's not poor Mrs. Rhodes. What is it?
Nothing. Well, it's only the exams. They've worried me. I'm not sure if I've done it all well or if Mr. Rhodes will see my results. I mean, you see...
I don't see, Tim.
Let me tell you after my music lesson.
All right. I'll be in my room.
Well, thank you, True. Thanks ever so much.
Mind how you go on that bicycle. And do be careful at the bottom of Longmead Hill. It's awfully slushy down there.
Oh, I'm going as slow as a snail.
Give my regards to Mrs. Harlow.
I will.
Oh, Mr. Smiley, you got my message then?
Message? No, Inspector. I was on my way over already.
Oh, I thought you were quick in arriving. You've heard the news then?
What news?
About the boy in Fielding's house, missing all night.
No, I've heard nothing.
Well, 8:30 last night, Fielding rang us here. Perkins, his head boy, hadn't arrived at a music lesson with a Mrs. Harlow who lives over at Longmead. Neither had he come back. We found him an hour or so later at the bottom of Longmead Hill, half in the ditch, his bicycle beside him. Dead.
Oh, my dear God.
We've closed the road and we've been trying to reconstruct the accident. Looks as though he must have fallen from his bike near the bottom of the hill and hit his head on a stone, his right temple.
How did Fielding take it?
He was very shaken. Just seemed to give up. And then he broke down and asked to be left alone.
How do you mean, broke down?
He cried. Wept like a child. I would never have thought it.
I suppose it was an accident.
I suppose so.
Perhaps, Inspector, before we go any further, I'd better give you my news. That's why I came to see you. I've just heard from Miss Brimley. She's been looking at the contents of a parcel.
Yes, they're at the refugee relief place at York Square. No, I'm not sure. I'm only hopeful. Yeah. Yes, fingerprints on all surfaces. Yes. I'll come up with the 4:25 this afternoon. At 8:05. Oh, one last thing. I'll be bringing some samples of a schoolboy's handwriting and an examination paper. Yes. I'd like the opinion of a handwriting expert. Thanks. See you later. Hey, it's a funny sort of jump in the dark, that one of yours, about Perkins.
Well, I've no idea yet what it might prove. But that bicycling cape in the parcel looks like the answer to Janie's silver wings in the moonlight.
Someone riding a bike with a plastic cape flying out behind him.
Yes, the devil riding on the wind.
I shall have to let Janie go, I suppose.
I wouldn't, Rigby. Keep her with you, so long as you can possibly manage. No more accidents, for heaven's sake. We've had enough.
Then you don't believe Perkins' death was an accident?
Good Lord, no. And nor do you you?
I put a detective onto it.
This is a clever chap we're up against. Everything devised to the last detail, even the weapon you found where you did. Stella Rhodes' murder was a murder with clues cast to mislead. A murder planned to look unplanned. And somehow poor young Perkins got in the way. Or more likely knew something, without knowing it, if you see what I mean. God knows what, except it was important to the murderer.
All right. I'll keep Janie in.
If you find any fingerprints on the stuff in the parcel, will you have anything local to compare them with?
Well, we got Rhodes, of course, and Janie's.
But not Fielding's?
As a matter of fact, we have, from long ago. But nothing to do with this kind of thing.
Oh, it was during the war. His brother told me, up in the north of England. It was hushed up, wasn't it?
Yes. So far as I've heard, only the Darcys know. And the master, of course. Some Air Force boy.
Yes, that was it. Well, I'll be off. Good hunting in London, Inspector.
Are you making any calls or anything, sir?
Well, I was thinking of dropping in at Fielding.
Mr. Fielding's very upset, sir. He told me he didn't want to see anyone, but I've said you're here, sir, and he'll be in shortly. Would you like me to take your coat?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, True.
Yes, sir.
Smiley, what do you want?
I just wanted to say goodbye, Fielding, and to offer you my condolences.
Well, goodbye. Thank you for calling. You needn't have bothered, really. You could have sent me a card, couldn't you?
Well, I could have done, yes. But it just seems so very tragic when he was so near success.
What do you mean? What the devil do you mean?
Well, I mean in his work, the improvement. Simon Snow was telling me about it. Amazing, really, the way Rhodes brought him on.
Goodbye, Smiley. Thanks for coming.
Well, not at all. I suppose poor Rhodes must have been bucked with those exam results, too. I mean, it was more or less a matter of life and death for Perkins, passing that exam, wasn't it? He wouldn't have got his removed next half if he'd failed that science paper. You must have helped him wonderfully, both of you, you and Rhodes. Oh, you've heard the latest, I suppose, about that wretched gypsy woman who killed Stella Rhodes. They've decided she's fit to plead. Or just between ourselves, Fielding, I don't believe she did it. Do you? I don't.
No. Can't kill them. It could only happen here. It's the game we play, the exclusion game. Divide and rule. Now, for God's sake, go. You've got what you wanted. Go.
Oh, come on, Fielding. There's a fire here. Now, sit down. Good. Now, listen. If what I think is true, there isn't much time. I want you to tell me about Tim Perkins, about the exam paper. He would have failed, wouldn't he?
Yes. I've had to leave.
The day the Rhodes came to dinner, that day Rhodes left his case in the hall. It was unlocked. But you know that, don't you? Perkins took his chance, and later when you asked him how he'd done in the exam...
He wept. He wept as only a child can.
And he told you he'd cheated. That he had looked up the answers and copied them onto his paper. And after the murder of Stella Rhodes, he remembered what else he'd seen in the briefcase. Is that right?
No, don't you see? Tim wouldn't have cheated to save his life. He never cheated at all. I cheated for him.
You? But you couldn't copy his handwriting.
It was only formulae and diagrams written with a ballpoint pen, the kind we all use. Don't you see, Smiley, it was easy. His paper was hopeless. He'd only done 2 out of the 7 questions. So I cribbed 5 answers from the science book. He was in the case, too, and wrote them in.
Then it was you who opened the case. You who saw...
Yes, it was me, I tell you, not Tim. He knew nothing.
And when Stella was murdered, you knew who had done it.
Yes, I knew Rhodes had killed her.
Yes, yes. And what exactly was in the case, beside the papers?
A sheet of transparent plastic. It may have been one of those pack-away cape things. An old pair of gloves and a pair of homemade galoshes.
Homemade?
The hack from a pair of Wellington boots, such a thing.
Was that all?
No. There was a length of heavy cable, I presume for demonstrating something in his science lessons. It seemed natural enough in winter to carry waterproofs about. Then, after the murder, I realized how he'd done it.
Did you know why he'd done it?
Rhodes was drunk with the pride of Khan. It had gone to his head. It must have hurt him terribly that Stella wouldn't take any part in the power and glory, wouldn't share any of it. The night they came to dinner, the night she died, she upset Rhodes. I never told anyone this, but she did. Rhodes was full of a sermon the master had just given. Hold fast to that which is good. Oh, Rhodes went on and on about it. He couldn't take too much drink, you know. He wasn't used to it. She kept quiet till he'd finished, then laughed and said, poor old Stan. You'll always be Stan to me. I've never seen anyone so angry as he was then. He went quite pale. I've watched her, too, at meals, at dinner parties, elsewhere as well as here. I watched the way she'd peel an apple. Oh, you know what I mean. Well, she must have seen how people do things here, but it never occurred to her she ought to copy them. Well, I admire that. So do you, I expect, but Khan doesn't. And Rhodes didn't. And I think he grew to hate her for not conforming. He came to see her as the one factor which would deprive him of a great career. He couldn't divorce her. That would do him more harm than being married to her in the eyes of Khan. Rhodes knew that. So he killed her. He plotted a squalid murder. With his little scientist's mind, he fabricated clues. But something went wrong. Tim Perkins got 61%. An impossible mark. He must have cheated. And to cheat, he must have opened the briefcase, and then he must have seen the cape, the boots, the gloves, the cable. So Rhodes killed him, too.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Fielding. I'll have to let Rigby know.
Yes, let the sergeant know. I'll have to face the music about the cheating. I feel much better now, anyway. Much.
I sent a chap round to collect Rhodes. He should be here any moment. And no arrest, just a chat. Why the hell didn't Fielding tell us about this before?
Oh, that's what I'm wondering. It could be that he didn't understand the significance of what he saw until...
Until what, sir?
Perkins's death, I suppose, Rigby.
And that doesn't add up. The handwriting blokes at the yard are convinced that the whole exam paper is in the same hand. Is Fielding a liar, then?
Yes, yes. The most accomplished liar I'd come across for a long time.
Rhodes could have done everything. He could have dressed himself up in a plastic outfit, killed his wife, then put the cape and things in the refugee parcel. Having done that, he plays the part of the distressed husband. The only trouble with that pretty picture is how he made the weapon fly through the air into a ditch 4 miles away. It just doesn't work. And would he have had the courage to go back in there, playing the distressed husband, knowing that Mad Janie was about? If he did know.
Were there any fingerprints?
Not a one. And the blood on the gloves and on the length of the cable are of the same blood group, which was Stella Rhodes.
Nobody knows that you found the weapon, or when you found it.
Nobody outside my squad, and yourself. I think I'd better send someone round to Fielding and get a full statement, lies or not.
May I suggest something, Rigby?
By all means, sir.
Speak to Rhodes first. Ask him about the briefcase. As an opening, I mean.
And you'll stay, Mr. Smiley?
By all means.
What motive would Fielding have had?
To lie or to kill?
Both.
I wish I really knew.
Well, come in.
Mr. Rhodes, sir.
Well, come and sit down, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to drag you along like this, but there are just one or two things I'm not clear on. Oh, by the way, you know Mr. Smiley, don't you?
Yes, from the Voice. We met the other day.
Mr. Smiley is helping us.
I didn't feel he was really from the Voice. You didn't quite smack of the tabernacle, Mr. Smiley. Well, Inspector, how can I help you?
This business of the briefcase with the exam papers in it.
The case I went back for.
Aye.
It was awful about that boy. A nice boy, but he was very stupid. I suppose he found the case in Fielding's Hall and opened it and copied the answers. He could have only got that mark by cheating. I should have locked it, of course.
What else was in the case, Mr. Rhodes?
What else? Well, only the papers and the book with the questions and answers. Henderson's Elementary Science, it's called. Well, you've seen the case, surely. It's only a little one, about 18 by 12 inches, 6 or 7 inches across.
Well, why did you leave it behind? Was it absent-mindedness?
No, not really. I could have sworn Stella was carrying it as we stood in the hall saying goodbye. It wasn't until we got home that she asked me what I'd done with it.
She asked you what you had done with it?
Yes. And then she threw a temper and said I expected her to remember everything. I didn't particularly want to go back. I could have rung Fielding and arranged to collect it first thing next morning. But Stella wouldn't hear of it. She made me go.
You should have told me this in the first place, Mr. Rhodes.
Well, you see, I didn't want to tell anyone about our quarrels. I wanted to keep the truth about Stella to myself. But then...
But what, Mr. Rhodes?
Well, you must suspect I killed her. And anyway, by now, a lot of people here in Caen know what Stella was really like, the truth about her.
You mean that she was not a very nice woman?
It was her father, old Mr. Glaston, who first told me. When I said I wanted to marry Stella. I never thought to hear a human being talk like that of his own child.
What did he say?
He said she was bad. Bad in her heart, that she was full of malice. He told me how she'd lead people on, all kind and warm, till they told her everything. Then she would hurt them. Say wicked things, half true, half lies. He told me a lot more besides.
Well, go on, please, Mr. Rhodes.
Of course, I didn't believe him. I just thought him a lying, jealous old man who wanted his child to wait on him until he died. So I married Stella.
And when did you discover her father was right about her?
The realization just crept up on me after a year or so, little things here and there, but... No, it wasn't until we came to Caen that I knew what her father had said was really true. She hadn't been very keen on chapel before, but as soon as she got here, she went in for it in a big way. She knew it would look wrong, that it would hurt me. She wasn't sincere. A lot of people at chapel knew that. Mr. Cardew, the minister, knew. He understood why I gave up chapel. I couldn't bear to see her going there every Sunday and going down on her knees. It was all wrong. Just made a fool of your faith. All she wanted to be was different, to spite the school and me by playing the humble one.
My wife and you were at chapel, you know, Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, I know that. But your wife never gossiped. Stella said that. It made her cross, because to begin with, people liked her and they talked to her. She listened. Oh, she loved to listen. And she hoarded away every drop of gossip and dirt. She'd come home sometimes after her chapel work in the evenings and throw off her coat and laugh till I thought she'd gone mad. I've got them. I've got them all. I know all their little secrets. Those that realized what she knew, they grew to be frightened of her.
Did she have a hold on a man called Mulligan?
Yes. Yes, how did you know that? He's got a daughter with an illegitimate kid near Leamington. Stella found out.
Well, that's how she helped the Snows when they were moving in.
She told me about that. She rang up Mulligan from the Snows and said, "Greetings from Leamington Spa, Mr. Mulligan. We need a little cooperation."
And he cooperated.
But they got her in the end, didn't they? They got their own back.
Yes, they got their own back.
Mad Janie didn't do it, Inspector. No, Janie's as soon have killed her own sister as killed Stella. They were as close as moon and stars. That's what Stella said. She looked after Janie. You see, it gave her a feeling of power to help a creature like Janie and have her fawning around. Not because she was kind, but because she was cruel.
Was she cruel to her dog?
You know about that too, do you? Oh, yes, she often beat it. But one day she beat it until it was... Oh, poor brute. She must have gone mad. Well, I couldn't take that. I took most things. I had to, you understand? I had to, unless I left Caen. But that... I shouted at her. She laughed. And then I hit her. Not hard, but hard enough. I gave her 24 hours to have the dog destroyed, or I'd tell the police. She took it to the vet the next day. I suppose she told him some tale. She could always do that.
She said it had bitten the postman, Mr. Rhodes. Not very original, And she was found out by Miss Darcy.
Ah. Now, the Darcys understood about her. Yes, Felix Darcy. Oh, that was strange. Anyway, after the business of the dog, she took to pretending I was violent, cringing away whenever I came near, holding her arm up as though I was going to hit her again. She even made out I was plotting to murder her. She went and told Mr. Card who I was. Did you know that?
Yes, sir, we knew that.
She didn't really believe it herself. She'd laugh about it sometimes. Then at other times she'd whine and stroke me, begging me not to kill her in the long nights. It was the words that got her. The long nights. She liked the sound of them, the way an actor does.
You were going to say something about Darcy.
Darcy? Oh, yes. Yes, he knew about Stella, but not because she had anything on him. No, that was something different. She had something special there, something she'd never told me about, you see. There were nights when she'd slip out, all excited, as if going to a party. Quite late sometimes, 11 or 12 o'clock.
You didn't ask her where she was going, Mr. Road?
No, I never did. You see, if I had, she'd have enjoyed not telling me or telling me a lie. I only knew she was going to meet somebody she had on the hook. Darcy must have known who it was. She said he did, but he couldn't tell. She liked that. Well, that was all I ever knew. Have you any idea who killed her? You know I didn't, don't you?
Yes, I think I know that, sir.
But you don't know who killed her. You don't know yet.
I think we know who killed her, Rod. I think we do now.
What the hell do you want with me again, Smiley? I thought you'd gone back to London.
No, I didn't go back after all. Something cropped up. Here, I mean.
You had to do some more of your wretched little spying, did you?
No, not spying, Fielding. Talking. Talking to Rose.
Yes, I heard the police had pulled him in.
Not pulled him in, Fielding. They've just been getting his story.
Well, thank you for telling me, Smiley. It's most interesting, but you needn't have bothered. I'm not concerned any longer with Road or any of this dreadful, sordid business. At the end of this half, I leave Caen for good. Wash my hands of the place. Goodbye, Smiley.
The story you told me yesterday when I came and saw you about cheating for Tim Perkins, how you took the paper from the case and altered it.
Yes?
It isn't true. They've examined it, and it isn't true. The writing was all one person's, the boy's. If anyone cheated, it must have been Tim Perkins himself.
My dear Smiley, you can't expect me to believe that. These policemen are practically moronic. And what does it matter? Tim is dead, isn't he? Road killed him. Look, Smiley, I've things to do. I have to go to London tomorrow. Do you know why? I'm seeing a headmaster about a job. I've no pension when I leave here, you know. I have to go on working. I shall have to teach at a crammer's, a sort of breaker's yard for old dons. Don't you feel sorry for me? Isn't it a nice sensation to feel pity for an old fake like me?
Of course, it doesn't necessarily signify anything. I mean, you could be protecting the boy, couldn't you? By lying for him, even though he's dead, for his honor, so to speak. Is that the explanation?
I've been playing to an empty house here at Caen, you know, Smiley. They won't remember me for more than a half or two. What a mess I've made of life. That's all there is to it.
You've got to listen, you know, Fielding. There might have been collusion between you and the boy. A situation where you were moved by the boy's distress when he brought you the papers. And on the spur of the moment, you opened the case and took out his paper and told him what to write.
I told you the truth yesterday. Make what you want of it.
I'm trying to help, Fielding. I beg you to believe me, I'm trying to help. I don't want there to be more trouble than need be, more pain. I want to get it straight before Rigby comes. It matters terribly about the briefcase. Everything hangs on whether you really saw inside it and whether Perkins did. Don't you see that?
Sit down, Smiley. What are you trying to say?
If it was Perkins who cheated after all, if it was only the boy who opened the case and not you, then they'll want to know the answer to a very important question. They'll want to know how you knew what was inside it.
What was inside it? The plastic cape, the gloves, the galoshes, the piece of cable. I saw them. They have to believe that. They were the things, even if that police sergeant hasn't been able to find them.
Oh, don't be so silly, Fielding. Everything's been found. It was all in a refugee parcel. All but one thing.
Well, Road had every opportunity to do that, put things into one of Stella's parcels afterwards.
Well, let's start from the other end. Suppose it was you who killed Stella Road. Suppose you had a reason, a terribly good reason. Suppose you went ahead of Road after giving him the case that night, overtaking him by bicycle. Suppose Janie saw you, like she said, riding on the wind. Then feeling, if that were really so, none of those things were ever in the case. You must have made it up, all of it. Of course, later, when the exam results came out, you realized that Perkins had cheated. Then you knew he had seen inside the case, had seen that it contained nothing but the exam papers. And he could have told the police that. That would explain why you had to kill the boy.
I hear you.
Because you did kill him, didn't you? You waited for him at the bottom of that hill. Twice a week he came down it at the same time on his way to his music lesson. You must have stopped him and then hit him with a stone. It looked like an accident. Looked as if he'd fallen off his bicycle. Poor Tim Perkins. That was a terrible thing to do, Fielding. And it nearly broke you, didn't it?
Shut up, for God's sake! Shut up! And why should I have killed Stella Road? What was the reason you spoke of?
Oh, I think it was like this, but one thing for certain first. When you were convicted, the RAF boy, in the north of England, the magistrate who convicted you was a Mr. Glaston, Stella's father. So she knew about that. It was the sort of information she would hoard and use. Rhodes has told us the truth about her. She was dreadful, wasn't she? Evil, Rhodes called her. Really evil.
Go on, Smiley.
She came and told you what she knew. That was all. But she had you on the hook, as Rhodes calls it. You spoke to Darcy about her. Darcy knew of your conviction, and he suggested you played along with her to discover what she really wanted. So she summoned you to meetings at absurd times and places, in woods and disused churches, at night mostly. And she wanted nothing from you but your will. She made you listen to her boasts and her mad intrigues, made you fawn and cringe. At least, I believe it was like that. Although she also had the power to stop you getting another job, and she tormented you with that. You planned to kill her, Fielding. And then on the night when the case was left behind, you saw your chance, and you took it.
Did I? Did I? And how did I know Rhodes was coming back for the case that night?
It was part of Stella's little game. She left it behind purposely, and she arranged that you were to visit her after Rhodes had collected the case. She made him go back for the case. Then she sat there, waiting for you, Fielding. It was a perfect opportunity. There was only the slight risk that Rhodes might have recalled you riding past him. But bicycles are common in Caen, and with a plastic cape on, you might have been anybody.
Sheer fantasy, Smiley. I saw what was in that briefcase. I told you Rhodes must have done it. Of course, you're quite right about her blackmailing me. But she did many worse things to other people, and not least to Rhodes himself.
They know Rhodes didn't do it, Fielding. The point was that she could have stopped you getting any job in any school. And I think she would have done. Or if she'd let you obtain a job, then she would have still had you on the hook.
How do they know Rhodes didn't do it? How can they know? He's got no alibi.
Why should he have made all the bother with the case? Why didn't he keep the case with him all the time? To do what he did do with it doesn't make sense. But never mind. If he did leave the case behind, so he had a chance to put on his killing outfit without hurry, without Stella suspecting, then he did have a sort of alibi. But actions like that don't make sense, Fielding.
Why not? How do you know? How do you know it wasn't Rhodes?
I'll tell you. 5 minutes after discovering the body, Rhodes was with Darcy. From then on, for the next 48 hours, he was under constant supervision. Perhaps you didn't know this, Fielding, but next morning the police found the murder weapon where you dropped it that night, 4 miles down the road in a ditch. Rhodes couldn't have got it there, could he? In 5 minutes.
No, of course not. Bad mistake, wasn't it, Smiley?
Well, why didn't you throw the cable in the canal, where it would never have been found? Did you so much want to incriminate Rhodes?
It would have been poetic justice. It was Rhodes who brought the frightful woman here to Caen because he nursed a miserable little ambition. He wanted to be one of us, the stupid oaf. So he let her loose on Caen and on me in particular. Didn't he guess what she was up to, what she was really like?
Rhodes knew. He knew all there was to know about her. He suffered because of her, but he never murdered her.
No, I did that. She got her just deserts. And you know, Smiley, if I hadn't done it, somebody else would, sooner or later. She'd have tormented some other poor devil. That's what she liked about it, of course. I rang the bell that night, and she came to the door, full of herself, ready to put me through her catechism. And then she saw that I was going to kill her. For a moment she showed fear, for a fraction of a second only. She made a mouth as if to scream, but she didn't utter a sound. Then, just as I was about to strike her down, she looked up at me, and there was no surprise in her eyes. I never thought I would make a murderer, you know, Smiley. Perhaps Stella Road would have made one out of any man. I imagine Rigby is on his way.
Yes, he should be here soon.
How very civilized this all is. I suppose she'd have let me get the job at that awful Crammer's just to keep tracks on me. She'd never have let go of me. She loathed me and everything I stood for too much to let me slip out of her life. Oh, those meetings, I can't describe them. It wouldn't be decent. But I shall never forget them. And I shall have plenty of opportunity to remember them, shan't I? Could you have stood her treatment, Smiley? Surely it was as bad as any treatment by a secret police. The sudden grab, the smooth release, and then the sudden grab again. No end to it. Don't you see I had to kill her?
No, Fielding, no. Because I think of what followed. Tim Perky. How old was he? 17. And he cheated probably for the first time in his life. And paid for it with his life.
I try to forget that. To kill the thing you love. God help me. And now True will answer the door and say, "Good evening, Mr. Rigby. What can I do for you?"
Oh, good evening, Mr. Rigby. What can I do for you at this time of evening?
Mr. Fielding, please, Miss Truebody.
I think he has somebody with him, a Mr. Smiley.
Yes, I know. Is this the door?
Yes, but...
Good evening, Inspector.
I have a warrant for your arrest, Mr. Fielding, on the charge of murdering Mr. Stella Road on the night of February the 16th.
I know, Inspector.
Oh, Mr. Fielding, you can't let them say such things.
Poor True. The Inspector's quite right. On the night of the 16th, I killed Stella Road.
No, you're just saying that, Mr. Fielding. You couldn't murder anybody, not you, Mr. Fielding.
I never thought I could either, True, but she made me a murderer, you know. Oh. And then I had to go on.
Go on? I don't understand. Oh, no. No, not him. You loved him. I saw him off that night. I told him to be careful.
Come on, for heaven's sake, let's get this over with.
I must warn you that anything you say may be used in evidence.
It always has been, Inspector. Goodbye, Smiley. I'm sorry I'm not a patch on my brother.
Goodbye, Fielding.
You know, they'll never be able to live this down at Caen. Things will never be quite the same again here. That is something to be remembered by, isn't it? Quite something.
Patrick Barr played Fielding, and David Bird, George Smiley, in Frederick Bradnam's adaptation of A Murder of Quality, the novel by John le Carré. Peter Williams played Inspector Rigby, and Joan Sanderson, Miss Brimley. Michael Spice was Road, Pauline Letts, Miss Truebody, Brian Hewlett, Perkins, Dennis Hawthorne, Darcy, Delia Payton, Dorothy Darcy, Maureen Beck, Mad Jady, Elizabeth Cassie, Jill, Claire Davenport and Edward Dewsbury, Shane and Charles Hecht, and Jill Carey and John Pullen, Anne and Simon Snow. A Murder of Quality was produced by David Geary.
The Sunday play at 2:30 on Radio 4 tomorrow is John Drinkwater's classic Abraham Lincoln, starring Michael Hordern and Mary O'Farrell. 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, Abraham Lincoln.
Not just an ordinary cane, my dear.
Alec.
It's a sword cane, see? Calhoun used it when he killed his wife, right where you're standing.
Alec, you killed Sanders.
Exactly.
And now you're going to kill me.
Yes.
No. Keep away from me.
Sorry.
Keep away.
My dear. Midnight. The witching hour when the night is darkest, our fears the strongest, and our strength at its lowest ebb. Midnight, when the graves gape open and death strikes. How? You'll learn the answer in just a minute in The House Where Death Lived. And now, Murder at Midnight. Tales of mystery and terror by radio's masters of the macabre. Our story is a ghostly nightmare by one of radio's best-known mystery writers, Robert Newman. Its title, The House Where Death Lived. A large rambling house on top of a hill. A house whose windows are either shuttered or broken. A rusty iron fence surrounds it, and its grounds are waste and uncared for. A car grinds slowly up the hill, stops before the main gate, and two men get out. One of them is gray-haired but vigorous. The other wears a chauffeur's uniform. They push open the heavy gate, start up the gravel path.
Quite a joint.
You could hardly expect it to be a show place after being empty for more than 10 years.
It's open.
Yes. Well, I'm glad we didn't have to force it. All right, Sanders. You can go back to the car and wait for me. I should be out in about a half an hour or so.
You mean you're going in alone?
Why, yes. Somehow I don't think you're exactly suited by temperament for psychic research.
Okay, Doc. I'll be waiting for you back in the car.
Right. Now, let's see. I suppose the best place to start would be...
Good evening.
What? Oh, I'm awfully sorry. I hope I haven't made a mistake. This is the Calhoun house, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, this is very embarrassing. I was down to see the trustees just this morning. They gave me permission to go through the place and told me that there was no one living here, that no one had lived here for many years.
Well, as you can see, that's not quite true. Not that it matters. I lead a rather lonely life, and I'm very glad you came. I'd be more than happy to show you around.
Well, you're very kind. My name is Goff, Dr. Alexander Goff.
Dr. Goff.
For the past few years, I've been specializing in psychic research.
Oh, yes.
You've heard of me?
I'm sorry, no. But I do know that scientists, specialists in psychical research, have been interested in the house for many years. There have been several books written about it.
I read about it in the series of studies that Kinsey did. He said it was one of the most fertile fields for manifestations he'd ever come across. It has a long history of apparitions and hauntings.
That's very true. And now, would you like to look around?
I'd like that very much.
Very well. I imagine the best place to begin is with the cellar. This way.
The cellar. That's where Mrs. Calhoun was killed, wasn't it?
Yes. I keep the door locked now for that and for several other reasons.
May I?
No, wait. Don't try to go down. Have you a match?
Why, yes. There aren't any stairs.
Exactly. That's how Mrs. Calhoun was killed. The stairs had become rotten, and Calhoun took them out, put in that ladder. Mrs. Calhoun didn't know it. She tried to go down, fell, and broke her neck.
But she wasn't just killed. She was murdered, wasn't she?
Well, you whether it was deliberate or not. For a long time, people didn't even suspect what had happened. They thought that she'd run away, disappeared. However, after she was killed, Calhoun buried her down there in the cellar. You see, over there, near that big flagstone.
Oh, I see. Well, after that, there was something about a gardener, wasn't there?
Yes, Burroughs. He had helped Calhoun take out the stairs. Considerably later, he was working in the cellar and found some bones, and he put two and two together
and went to the police.
No, he did a lot better than that, from his own point of view. Shall we go back into the parlor?
Oh, yes, of course.
I'll just shut this door again. There. Burroughs began blackmailing Calhoun. Calhoun paid for a while, and then one day he called Burroughs in here, into the parlor. He was sitting over there at that desk. He had his cane with him. The cane that's on the desk there now. You can look at it if you like.
Well, thank you. I would like to look at it.
Twist the handle and pull on it.
A sword cane?
Yes. He killed Burroughs right here in this room. That stain on the carpet, there's his blood. This time he didn't even try to get away with it. He called in the police, and he was tried and sent to an institution.
Yes, but that's what I don't understand. If Calhoun had committed 2 murders, why wasn't he sent to jail or hanged?
Because no one knew whether he was sane or not. As a matter of fact, I don't think Calhoun knew himself. You see, when they asked him why he had killed his wife and Burroughs, he said he had to, that he'd been told to.
Told to? By whom?
Well, he wasn't sure. By voices. He said they told him that they lived here in this house before him, that they had killed, and that he would have to kill too.
Excellent, excellent. Just what I've been looking for and what I've hoped for. A house with a tradition of hauntings, where each generation is affected by that tradition and adds to it. What's the matter?
They've come for me. They're weighing me down, dragging me back.
They? Who? Oh, you're ill. Here, let me help you.
No, it's no use. You can't pick me up. It's too much on my hands, on my head.
Where is he?
He was there, right there on the floor. I tried to pick him up and put him on the couch, but I couldn't lift him. Now he's gone.
Well, now, look, Doc, if he fell down, if he was as weak as you said it... Hey, wait a minute. Hey, what did he look like?
Well, he was quite old, about 70, and very tall and thin. He had white hair and a white goatee.
Holy smokes.
What's the matter?
Well, I was waiting outside for you. The guy that lives just down the hill came by, and we kind of talked a little.
Yes?
I told him you were inside here, and you described Calhoun to me, the guy that used to live here. And the old gent you say you spoke to sounds just like him.
But it couldn't have been. Calhoun is still in an institution.
No, he's not. At least not exactly. That's how this guy happened to talk about it. You see, he just read in the paper that Calhoun had died yesterday.
Sanders?
Yeah?
That was Calhoun's ghost.
Oh, now, look,
It was, I tell you. It has to be. This is what I've been looking for years. An apparition that manifests itself without a medium or any apparatus. It's exactly what I need for the last chapter of my book. And I'm going to stay here until he appears again. Calhoun? Calhoun? Where are you? Why don't you come back? I'm waiting for you. Oh, it's no use. 2 days now and not a sign of him. Maybe Sanders was right. Maybe I did imagine the whole thing. Either that. Wait a minute. He didn't die here. He died at the asylum. He'd lived here all his life, committed 2 murders here. Perhaps the aura, the forces here, were strong enough to evoke him once, but not to bring him back again. His wife and the gardener, they did die here. If I could establish contact, I might be able to evoke them. Or else if someone else died here, someone I knew and someone that knew me. Calhoun! Is that right? Is that what I have to do? What? Who's there?
Me, Doc. Sanders.
Oh, just a second.
Oh, what a night. It's blowing like all get out.
What do you want, Sanders?
Well, the missus thought she's getting a little worried about you. Thought you might be running low on food.
Oh, no, I still have plenty. I haven't been eating much.
Any luck?
No, he hasn't materialized again, but I'm sure he will. I know he will.
If someone else died here, someone you knew, and someone that knew you.
Yes.
What's the matter, Doc? Hey, why are you staring at me that way? Doc!
I'm sorry, Sanders. Sanders, I was just thinking that if you stayed here with me, it might help.
But I thought you said I was all wrong for this kind of stuff. You know I don't believe in ghosts, anything like that.
Well, I did say that, Sanders, but... Oh, this place is different. This is such a powerful, fertile field for psychic manifestations that I think if you did stay, we could cure your skepticism permanently.
Yeah? How?
Well, this is such a perfect night for an evocation. Listen.
I don't hear anything. Just a storm.
Listen hard. There it is again. It's down in the cellar.
Where's that?
It's back there.
Where?
Go ahead, run. You're quicker than I am, Sanders. Run, hurry.
Okay, but I still don't hear anything.
A man with an obsession in a haunted house. A man with a corpse in his hands as the clock strikes 12 for...
Murder at midnight.
And now, to continue with our story. It's just a moment later, and Dr. Goff is still standing by the open cellar door. Lighting a candle, he peers down to where Sanders' body lies huddled on the flagstones below.
Sanders? Sanders? I think I'd better make sure. Sure. This. Well, now, let's see. He's dead, all right. Very dead. Neck broken in 2 places. I'm sorry, Sanders. Very sorry. But science is a hard mistress. I've been working on my book for 7 years. This is the first chance I've had tailed and objective observations on a specific set of phenomena. And when Calhoun didn't materialize again, I'm sure you understand. The only problem now is the police. They're apt to be very uncompromising about something like this. If there were only some way that I could... I know. The car. It's quite late and with the storm blowing, there's not likely to be anyone around. Yeah. Oh, come on, Sanders. You and I are going to take a little trip. Oh, we're almost there, Sanders. Just a little farther. Here we are. Now, let's see. Well, you turned the car around before you came in, so it's headed downhill. Oh, splendid. Very considerate. Now, open the door and put you in. Oh, up. Just make sure you don't fall sideways. That you stay behind the wheel. Yeah, that's it. Oh, is there anything else? Anything I've forgotten? I don't think so. Now, just take the brake off. And shut the door. And wait. There's no telling how far she'll go, especially with the street so bumpy. I only hope that she'll go far enough to pick up plenty of speed, so that when she does... She's swinging. Swinging to the right. Yeah? And now I wait. Sanders? Sanders! Where are you? It's been 4 or 5 days now. Why haven't you come back? Haven't you wanted to? Or haven't you been able to find a way? This is where you died, remember? Down here in the cellar. Are you down there? Sanders? Are you down there? No. Not down there. Not anywhere. What's that? Yes? Oh, who's that? Who's there? What do you want, Jean?
I want to talk. Let me in here, please.
Just a second.
Alec. Oh, I'm so glad to see you, dear.
I asked you, what do you want? Why did you come here?
Why? It's been almost a week now since you've been home. Have you any idea how worried I've been? You didn't even phone me after Sanders was killed.
I'm sorry. I just never thought of phoning her. I had other things on my mind.
How did it happen, Alec?
You read the verdict of the inquest. You probably fell asleep at the wheel waiting for me. The brakes slipped, the car rolled down the hill, and crash.
Poor Sanders. Somehow I can't help feeling...
Feeling what?
I don't know. Perhaps it's this horrible old house. Everything about it is just plain evil. Oh, Alec, why don't you give it all up?
Give what up?
This obsession of yours. You started writing a book, doing psychical research to prove that there were no such things as apparitions or ghosts.
Suppose
now...
I found out that I was wrong.
What?
Yes, what would you say if I told you that I'd already seen one apparition here, and that I was expecting to see another one?
Alec, oh, no.
Oh, yes, Gee. The first evening I came here, I saw Calhoun. I talked to him. He showed me around the house. And later on, I discovered that he had died the day before. I waited for him to come back again, but he never did. And I finally realized why. He couldn't come back because he hadn't died here. He died at the sanitarium. But now, I'm waiting for Sanders to come back.
Sanders? But he didn't die here either. He died?
Yes, Jean.
I don't like it here, Alec. I'm afraid. I'm going.
No, Jean. Don't go. You can help me.
Huh?
Come on in here. Into the parlor.
But Alec...
Come on, Jean. Later I'll tell you a very interesting story about this room, about something that happened here a long time ago.
But All right, Alec.
That's a good girl. You know, Jean, I've just realized I've been very stupid. Calhoun couldn't come back again because he didn't die here. Sanders did die here, but he wasn't buried here. And now I'm beginning to think that a spirit can only materialize in the place where its body is.
But what's that got to do with me?
Dear, does anyone know that you came here tonight?
Why, no, but...
Good.
What do you mean? And what are you doing with that cane?
You remember I said I was going to tell you a story about something that had happened here in this room? Well, this cane played an important part in it. You see, it's not just an ordinary cane. This is a sword cane. It's what Calhoun used when he killed his wife, right where you're standing.
Alec, you killed Sanders.
Exactly.
And now you're going to kill me.
Yes, dear. I am going to kill you. And I'm going to bury you right here, down in the cellar where Calhoun buried his wife. Then at least you will be able to come back. No, don't. Don't try and run away. It won't do any good. You see, I locked the door.
No. Keep away from me.
I'm sorry.
Keep away.
My
Help!
dear.
No!
Now, smooth up the gravel a little. She's covered well. There. That ought to do it.
Very nice, Doctor. Very nice indeed. You didn't do quite as neat a job as I did, but you did pretty...
Calhoun.
Yes, Doctor.
You're dead. But you did come back.
Yes, I came back to tell you how grateful I am to you.
Grateful? For what?
For having, shall we say, relieved me. You see, there's a curse on this house. When I was alive and lived here, even before I killed my wife and Burroughs, I saw the ghosts of those who had died before I was born. It was they who made me kill, because once I did kill three.
I don't understand.
Don't you? As long as this house stands, someone must haunt it. Until I died, it was haunted by those whom I had killed. When I died, it became my job. I thought it would be years before I could find someone to take my place, and then you came along.
You mean...
Yes, Doctor, yes, the curse. The evil that was spawned here has been you. Now it's haunted by those whom you killed, and I am in peace. But you must stay here and live with the evil you created until you die.
No, I won't stay.
Yes, you will, Doctor. Oh, I didn't believe it either. I thought I could leave whenever I wanted to. But I found that I couldn't. I had to stay until they took me away. When you try to leave, you'll find out why.
But I won't stay. I tell you, I won't. Neither you nor they can make me stay. Nothing can make me stay. No. Once more, you're right about this place. It is evil. But I'm not going to let that evil continue. It must be destroyed, along with every stick and stone in this house.
And just how do you propose to do that?
I'll show you. With fire. This can of kerosene. That pile of lumber there.
It won't do any good. Take my word for it.
No, you watch. There. The whole cellar, the whole house will go now.
Yes, Doctor, but you won't go.
I won't. You watch me.
But you can't go without me, Doc.
What?
Don't you remember? You carried me out to the car. You've got to take me with you.
And,
Yes, Doctor, your chauffeur.
Let go of me, Sanders. Let go. I can't take you with me.
And you've got to take me, too, Allie.
No. Let me go. Both of you.
You see, now you know why I couldn't go either. What dragged me back and weighed me down.
Please.
Now you know why you're going to have to stay here.
I won't stay. I tell you, I won't. Not even if I have to take both Sanders and Jean with me.
I'm afraid that won't do any good, Doctor. You see, I'm very strong.
No! It broke. I'm trapped here.
Goodbye, Doctor. If you don't mind, I'll leave you now for good.
No!
Flames roar higher and higher as Dr. Goff screams and staggers backward. Far away, a bell starts tolling for...
Murder at midnight.
Remember to be with us again when death stretches out his bony hand and the clocks strike 12 for...
Murder at midnight.
The part of Dr. Goff was played by Barry Kroger. With music by Charles Paul, Murder at Midnight was directed by Anton M. Leader.
I'm E.G. Marshall, cicerone of this guided tour through the regions of the mysterious and the macabre. Every man has his price, or so we are told. Some of us may protest that we are not for sale, and we may even be convinced of it. However, one should really refrain from making such statements until one has turned down an offer. The cynical view is that human beings are like the stock market. It's merely a matter of closing the distance between the bid and the ask. Is there really such a thing as an offer one cannot refuse? That's what the next hour is all about.
What can I do for you, ma'am?
I want someone to commit a murder.
What did you say?
I believe you heard me.
Madam, this is a furniture factory. I am the owner.
I know exactly who you are and what you do.
Why come to me? I'm not a murderer.
I'm willing to pay $1 million.
Murder is against every moral and religious conviction.
I'm willing to pay $1 million.
I would never...
I'm willing to pay you $1 million.
Our mystery drama, $1 Million Murder, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Sam Dan and stars Mandel Kramer. It is sponsored in part by all state insurance companies and True Value hardware stores. I'll be back shortly with Act One. Luck, as you know, is fortune. Of course, that's good luck. On the other hand, we have bad luck. The way it works, most people average out, which brings us to the law of averages, which says that over the course of your lifetime, you can expect luck to break 50-50. Well, some people can get each 50% all at once. Here we have Richard F. Nelson. Till recently, he's had nothing but good luck. But these past several months, he's taken one blow after another. He's 35. Half his allotted 70. Is bad luck to be the pattern for the rest of his life?
Come in. Jerry, come on in. Sit down.
Dick,
What's the matter? What's the long face?
Well, I guess there's no other way to say it except to say it. I'm leaving.
You're what?
I got another offer.
You're walking out on me in the middle of the season?
Dick, I can't turn it down. The money's twice as good.
I taught you everything you know. I made you my production foreman.
Got my future to think about.
What are you giving me?
2 weeks.
As far as I'm concerned, you can walk out of here right now. Pick up your money and beat it.
Okay, Dick, if that's the way you feel.
Jerry, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I had no right to talk to you like that. Actually, I should be happy that you're getting a break.
Dick, believe me, if it wasn't for the money...
Come on. You're not supposed to spend your life out here in the sticks. You don't really owe me anything. Where's the job?
Imperial Furniture.
Oh, that's big time.
I don't even know how they ever heard of me.
Well, word gets around. You're a top man, Jerry.
Well, I sort of felt you'd be glad for me, Dick, because that's the kind of guy you are.
It's just that so many things have been going wrong lately. I guess I'm just a little off stride, that's all.
Well, you know, my assistant's a pretty good man.
Well, don't worry about it. We'll survive. Anyhow, good luck.
Thanks, Dick.
And let's have dinner one night before you go.
Well, I'm going to be working overtime to the last minute. I want to leave you in good shape. Oh, by the way, that northern cherry wood I want to use for the sofa frames, it didn't come in.
What do you mean didn't come in? We should have had delivery a week ago. Look, you get back to the shop. I'll handle it.
Sure.
Yes?
Millie, get me George Cawley, please.
Yes, Mr. Nelson. And I have a call from Edward Jerome of Western States Merchandisers. Will you talk to him?
Will I talk to him? What do you think?
Yes, sir. I have Mr. Nelson for you now, Mr. Jerome.
Hello, Dick.
Eddie, what's new?
Dick, I'm calling to tell you that we have to cancel.
What?
I just got word this morning.
Cancel?
It's direct from the 8th floor.
Eddie, we made a lot of those chairs to your particular specifications.
Well, that was just part of, an informal understanding.
But why, Eddie?
I don't know. I guess all of a sudden classic is out and modern is in.
Eddie, practically all of it is made, packed, ready to ship.
Believe me, Dick, I understand.
Do you know what I've got tied up in that order?
Yeah, I know, and I'm sorry.
Look, well, can't you salvage even a piece of it for me?
I tried. Dick, I tried. But they shot me down. I'm really sorry, Dick. I'll be talking to you.
Yeah, okay. I could almost believe it's a plot. What now? Yes?
I have Mr. George Cawley.
Oh, thanks.
Go ahead, Mr. Cawley.
Hi, Dick. What's on your mind?
Where in blazes is my cherry wood?
Oh,
Well?
Well, Dick, I'm sorry. What happened is there's no record of your ordering any.
No, what do you mean? It's a standing order.
Well, actually, it's kind of an understood order.
I don't care what it is. I've been getting that shipment every month for over a year.
Look, here's what happened. My oldest got his master's in business administration, and he's come in with me, and he set up procedures.
George, all I want is the cherry
nothing
wood.
can get shipped unless there's a written order. And the shipping clerk must have forgotten to tell him. Dick, I'm really embarrassed.
Well, look, forget it. How quickly can you load a truck and get it out here?
Well, that's the problem, Dick. I don't think I've got 10 feet left in the warehouse.
George, I have to fill a special order for a New York chain.
I'm sorry. It was a terrible misunderstanding, but I'll make sure you're taken care of next month.
Next month? I have to wait 30 days?
Well, I hope it's only 30 days. You know how scarce that stuff is getting.
All right.
Thanks, Dick.
For what?
Well, for being so understanding. The average guy would have flipped his lid.
Sure. Goodbye, George.
Yes, Mr. Nelson?
Millie, for the rest of the day, I don't want to hear any bad news. You understand?
Please, Mr. Nelson, it isn't my fault.
I'm going to the club for lunch. What could happen to me there?
Hello, Dick.
Oh, Judge Morrow. You expecting anyone?
No. You joined me for lunch?
Thanks. I was hoping I'd run into you.
You look a bit out of sorts, Dick. Something wrong?
Yeah.
What is it?
I wish I knew.
You'll have to explain that.
Oh. Judge, you familiar with the story of Job?
Mm-hmm. More or less.
Well, that's who I feel like right now.
We don't see any boils.
Well, it might have been somewhat presumptuous of me to make the comparison, but I just feel that I am about to go down the drain.
Are you serious, Dick?
Judge, if things go on at this rate, I'll be bankrupt within the year. I stand to lose everything I own in the world.
But everyone says things are going great at your plant.
Every day it's something else. Another setback. I'm losing key customers.
How?
I don't know. Vital raw materials don't arrive.
Why?
It just happens. And to top it all, my foreman got a better job and is leaving me. What is it? What's happening?
Well, it's just a lot of bad luck.
So much bad luck? All at once?
Dick, I've known you all your life. You've always been the golden boy. Fortune has smiled upon you constantly. Well, she's an extremely fickle old girl, and now she wants to frown for a bit.
But it just seems to be a pattern.
You've probably been spoiled. You've never had to cope with adversity.
No, it's more than that, Judge. It's reached a point now where I know that every day is going to produce another setback.
Oh, come on now, Dick. It's all in your head.
Wait, where's the waiter? Charlie, would you please bring a phone over to my table?
Why do you want a phone?
I've only been away from the office for 20 minutes, Judge, and I'm willing to bet trouble is still rolling in. Thank you, Charlie.
You, might want to see a psychiatrist, huh?
Yeah, I would if I could sell him some furniture.
Richard Nelson and Company.
It's me, Millie.
Oh, it's a good thing you called, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Davis of Consolidated phoned.
They're sending back our order.
Mr. Nelson, how did you know?
Millie, I'm taking the rest of the day off. You see, it never rains. It pours.
Yes. But eventually, it stops.
One time it didn't stop for 40 days and 40 nights. And for most people, that was forever.
You don't don't have to let Jerry Lyons go, according to the union contract.
I know. I can keep him for a full year on a technicality, but what's the good of it? He'd be unhappy.
And why did you let George Coley off the hook?
Dorothy, what was there I could do?
You know what probably happened. Somebody needed that wood badly, offered him a higher price.
Oh, come on, George Coley isn't that kind of a guy.
You're not that kind of a guy. And so you want to believe the best about everyone else. And Eddie Jerome? Maybe the time has come to reach a certain understanding with Eddie.
What are you talking about?
Maybe Eddie wants to be taken care of.
Dorothy, you know I've never done business that way.
Maybe it's time you thought about
What
it.
are you saying?
I don't know, Dick. I
I never heard you talk like that about things like bribery and...
I know. But maybe that's the way business has to be conducted these days. Maybe you and I have lived a kind of a charmed life so far. Maybe we were shielded from reality.
Look, I have always prided myself on being ethical and honest. Maybe I'm being punished for...
For what?
Hubris. Pride. Who knows?
Hello.
Who are you?
Well, how did you get in? May I introduce myself? My name is Althea Beaumont. Your door was open, and so I...
What is it you want?
What do I want? First, may I sit down? Thank you. How are things at Richard F. Nelson and Company, manufacturers of fine furniture? Well, miss, it's Mrs. Although Mr. Beaumont has left us these past 5 years.
We don't want to seem inhospitable, but...
Of course. So, let us get to business.
Business?
Yes. That's why I'm here. Are you a furniture buyer, Mrs. Beaumont? By the end of the year, the Richard F. Nelson Company will need $1 million.
What are you talking about?
Salaries, accounts payable, loans due, and nothing is coming in.
What do you know about that?
It's true, isn't it?
Well, we have had a phenomenal streak of bad luck.
I know. And that's why I'm here. To reverse that streak. Who are you? No, reverse isn't quite the way to put it. Although that will happen. No, what I should have said is that I'm here to help you ride out that run of bad luck. In short, Mr. Nelson, I should like to offer you $1 million.
As a loan?
Oh, no, as a gift. Why would you want to make us a gift of $1 million? But, Dick, this woman is crazy.
Darling, that's no way to...
Of course it is. It's a sound, practical, feminine reaction. And you should verify me first. Here's my card. And here are some banks you should call, and this brokerage firm. I've authorized them to answer your questions. And I shall expect you to have lunch with me at my suite tomorrow at 1. But why should you want to give my husband $1 million? My dear Mrs. Nelson, should one look a gift horse in the mouth?
There are two schools of thought on that subject. People like St. Jerome and Miguel Cervantes said no. On the other hand, had the men of ancient Troy been more scrupulous in the inspection of their gift horse, the Greeks would have lost the Trojan War. But who is this Mrs. Althea Beaumont who intends to offer $1 million to a complete stranger and for no apparent reason? We'll know more when I return in just a few moments with Act 2. Does luck, good or bad, follow a pattern? According to the law of averages, you're supposed to get an equal part of each over the course of your lifetime. And we even have testimony for this in the Bible. After all, the 7 fat years were followed by 7 lean. All of which is scant consolation to Richard F. Nelson, who has been having some problems lately.
Come in. Ah, welcome. Won't you both sit down, please? Now, Mr. Nelson, Mrs. Nelson, have you investigated me?
Well, we made some calls.
And we discovered that you're a fabulously wealthy woman, Mrs. Beaumont. Fabulously wealthy. Yes, you could put it that way. And so, you have ascertained that I am capable of giving you $1 million if I choose.
Yes, but we can't understand why should you choose...
Well, I expect you to perform a small service for me in return, of course. Are we supposed to sell our souls to the devil?
Dorothy.
What a remarkable notion.
Oh, please. I didn't mean it to sound that way, but what am I supposed to think? Out of a clear blue sky, a stranger offers us $1 million. And, well, these things only happen in books or plays where you have to make a bargain with the devil, don't they?
You need that $1 million, don't you, Mr. Nelson?
Yes. You said something about performing a small service.
Oh, yes. And I don't think it's too much to ask, considering that I'm willing to pay $1 million for it.
What do you want us to do?
Do you know Judge Walter K. Morrow?
No, he's my dearest, closest friend.
The judge has been like a father to Dick all these years.
What about the judge?
I want you to kill him.
Oh.
What did you say?
I believe you heard me.
Dick, I'm frightened. She's a mad woman.
I would disagree.
You can't be serious. Kill Judge Morrow?
For $1 million.
You are a sick woman.
It isn't worth $1 million to you?
I shall have to report this to the police.
What will you report to the police? Who would believe such a ridiculous-sounding accusation?
Then you admit it's ridiculous.
No. I only said it sounds ridiculous.
I don't believe we have anything further to discuss.
I agree. We have discussed enough for one day. Sleep on it.
Mrs. Beaumont, you are an evil, vicious woman.
You may feel differently tomorrow.
About murder? Never.
You know where to find me.
I'm sorry, Dick. We can't afford you anymore.
I counted on that order.
The merchandise is just too expensive.
But it's highest quality. It's the best workmanship, the raw materials.
I know, but we can't sell it. Maybe the public doesn't appreciate it.
Look, isn't there any way that we can do some business this year?
Well, you'd have to give us a better price.
How much better?
Say, 30% better.
30%? How can I do 30% better?
Cut corners.
Cut corners? Take out the quality?
Our customers don't understand quality. Therefore, we don't demand it. And so you don't have to put it in.
I wouldn't know how to do business that way.
I understand your problem. But you have to understand my problem.
Yes, look, let me think about it. Maybe I can figure something out.
I sure hope so. Goodbye.
It won't work.
What?
You can't compete with the cutthroats.
How did you get in here?
You didn't come to see me.
I have nothing to see you about.
So I decided to make it easier for you. I came to your office.
Tell me, why do you want Judge Morrow murdered?
I don't like him.
And for that reason?
I can afford to indulge my emotions.
Well, why offer me $1 million to do it? Sure.
And how many girls have you ever known who were called Althea? You've blocked it, and her, completely from your mind, haven't you?
Althea?
To Althea from Prison by Richard Lovelace. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Minds innocent and quiet, take that for a hermitage.
Good Lord.
If I have freedom in my love and in my soul, am free, angels alone that soar above enjoy such liberty.
It's Althea.
What a coincidence. Your name was Richard and my name was Althea, and we pretended that you were that poet, that wonderful 17th century poet. How old were we?
Althea.
Just 18.
You can't be Althea.
You, the wealthy college boy, and I, only a townie who worked at the coffee shop. Oh, how I loved you, Richard. You were so different from every boy I'd ever known.
Please, Althea.
You introduced me to art, music, poetry, and now you don't even remember.
I do. I remember.
Do you remember the day that I told you
Althea,
that
don't.
I loved you so much, Richard? I loved you
Please.
so much.
Althea.
Let me refresh your memory.
Althea, please.
We were walking in the woods, and we came to our favorite spot.
Althea, darling.
Tell me you love me, Richard. Oh, tell me.
I love you.
Richard.
What's the matter, darling? What is it?
Well,
Something wrong?
I guess it all depends on the way you look at it.
You're acting so mysterious.
I suppose I am. It is the eternal mystery, the age-old mystery, the ever-new mystery of life and birth.
Althea, what are you saying?
I'm saying that you and I are going to...
Althea.
Are you sorry, Richard?
Sorry? Oh, my darling. Darling, I'm so happy. Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, we'll have to get married.
Oh, Richard.
You're the only girl I've ever loved, Althea. We're going to be married sooner or later. Okay. Sooner is greater.
That was on a Sunday. I remember it. It was my day off. And you said that you were going home to break the news to your legal guardian, Judge Morrow. And the following week you came back, and the distinguished jurist. He was with you. Must have been quite a week, because...
At 18, marriage